सावधूतं परिजना सहितं कृष्ण चैतन्य देवम् श्री राधा कृष्ण पदान् साधन ललिता श्री विशाखान्वितांश्च
Krishna Srinivas Gopal Prabhu, can you turn on the video?
Hare Krishna, Prabhu, can you hear me?
Thank you, Prabhu. Yes, we can see it very clear. Audio also is pretty clear. Just 1 minute, Prabhu.
Sure.
Yeah, I'll just put you on the focus and then, yeah. Can we start, Prabhu?
Yes, Prabhu.
Yeah. Hare Krishna devotees, welcome to Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya on a Saturday morning. Today we have the privilege of having the association of His Grace Srinivas Gopal Prabhu. We'll be just continuing the Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 5, Chapter 26, which is a description of the hellish planets. Today Prabhu will be covering verses 38 and 39. Prabhu, over to you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Prabhu. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Udirayet Sunvatam Swakata Krishna Punya Shavana Kirtanaha Hridayantasto hi abhadrani vidurnoti suhusratam नष्टप्रायेषु अभद्रेषु नित्यं भागवत सेवया भगवती उत्तमा श्लोके भक्तिर्भवति नैष्टिकी. Dear devotees, thank you for providing this opportunity to perform this seva. Though I am not qualified and not realized, I like to repeat whatever I hear for my own purification and for the pleasure of Lordships and Guru Gauranga. I'd like to thank sincere gratitude to His Grace Sankarshan Priya Prabhu for engaging me in this seva. So as Prabhu mentioned, today we are going to cover 2 verses from 5th canto, 26th chapter, verses 38 and 39. Verse, verse 38, it's, I don't know the meter, but I think it looks like it's in a prose. So let's read. Nivrutti lakshana marga adau eva vyaktau एतावान् एवान्धकोशो याश्चतुर्दशधा पुराणेषु विकल्पित उपगीयते यत्तद् भगवतो नारायणस्य साक्षान् महापुरुषस्य स्थाविस्तं रूपम् आत्ममाय गुणामायम् अनुवर्णितम् आदृतः पताति शृणोति श्रावयति सा उपगेयं भगवता परमात्मनोग्राह्यम् अपि श्रद्धाभक्ति विशुद्ध बुद्धिर्वेद. Synonyms: Nivritti Lakshana Margaha, the path symbolized by the renunciation or path of liberation. Adau, in the beginning. The second and third cantos. Eva, indeed. Vakyataha, described. Etavan, this much. Eva, certainly. Andakoshaha, the universe which resembles a big egg. Ya, which. Chaturdashada, in 14 parts. Puraneshu, in Puranas. Vikalpitaha, divided. Upa, giyate, is described. Yet, which. Tat, that. Bhagavataha, of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Narayanasya, of Lord Narayana, Sakshat, directly, Mahapurushasya, of the Supreme Person, Tavistam, the grass, Rupam, form, Atma Maya, of his own energy, Guna, of the qualities, Mayam, consisting, Anuvarnitam, described, Adrutaha, venerating. Patati, one reads. Shrunoti, or hears. Sevayati, or explains. Sa, that person. Upageyam, sung. Bhagavataha, of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Paramatmanaha, of the Super Soul. Agraham, difficult to understand. Api, although. Shraddha, by faith. Bhakti, and devotion. Vishuddha, purified. Buddhihi, whose intelligence. Veda, understands. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Translation. In the beginning, the second and third cantos of Srimad Bhagavatam, I have already described how one can progress on the path of liberation. In the Puranas, the vast universal existence, which is like an egg divided into 14 parts, is described. This vast form is considered the external body of the Lord, created by His energy and qualities. It is generally called the Virata Rupa. If one reads the descriptions of this external form of the Lord with great faith, or if one hears about it or explains it to others to propagate Bhagavata Dharma or Krishna consciousness, is faith and devotion in spiritual consciousness, Krishna consciousness will gradually increase. Although developing this consciousness is very difficult, by this process one can purify himself and gradually come to an awareness of the supreme absolute truth. Purport. The Krishna consciousness movement is pushing forward the publication of Srimad Bhagavatam, as explained, especially for the understanding of the modern civilized man, to awaken him to his original consciousness. Without this consciousness, one melts into complete darkness. Whether one goes to the upper planetary systems or the hellish planetary systems, is simply wastes his time. Therefore, one should hear of the universal position of the Virat form of the Lord as described in Srimad Bhagavatam. That will help one save himself from material conditioned life and gradually elevate him to the path of liberation so that he can go back home, back to Godhead. Verse 39. श्रुत्वा स्थूलं तथा सूक्ष्मं रूपं भगवतो यतिः स्थूले निर्जितम् आत्मानं शनै सूक्ष्मं धिया नयेत् इति. Synonyms. Shrutva, after hearing of from the disciplic succession. Sthulam, gross. Tata, as well as. Sukshmam, subtle. Rupam, form. Bhagavataha, of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Yatihi, a sannyasi or devotee. Sthule, the gross form. Nirjitam, conquered. Atmanam, the mind. Shane, gradually. Sukshmam, the subtle spiritual form of the Lord. Dhiya, by intelligence. Nayet, one should lead it to. Iti, thus. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. One who is interested in liberation, who accepts the path of liberation and is not attracted to the path of conditional life, is called yati or a devotee. Such a person should first control his mind by thinking of the Virata Rupa, the gigantic universal form of the Lord, and then gradually think of the spiritual form of Krishna, Satchidananda Vigraha. After hearing of the both forms, thus one's mind is fixed in samadhi. By devotional service, one can then realize the spiritual form of the Lord, which is the destination of devotees. Thus, his life becomes successful. Purport. It is said, Mahat Sevam Dwaram Ahur Vimuktehe. If one wants to progress on the path of liberation, he should associate with Mahatmas or liberated devotees, because in such association there is a full chance for hearing, describing, and chanting about the name, form, qualities and paraphernalia of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, all of which are described in Srimad Bhagavatam. On the path of bondage, one eternally undergoes the repetition of birth and death. One who desires liberation from such bondage should join the International Society of Krishna Consciousness and thus take advantage of the opportunity to hear Srimad Bhagavatam from devotees and also explain it to propagate Krishna consciousness. So today we are basically going to look at this fifth canto, 26th chapter, 38 and 39 verses. We'll start with the prayers. ॐ ज्ञानतिमिरान्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकाय चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूपा कदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकं वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरो श्रीयुतापदकमलं श्रीगुरुन् वैष्णवां च श्रीरूपं साग्रजातं सहगना रघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनासहितं कृष्ण चैतन्य देवं श्रीराधा कृष्ण पादान् सहगण ललिता श्री विशाखान्वितां च हे कृष्णा करुणा सिन्धो दीनबन्धो जगत्पते गोपेश गोपिका कान्ता राधा कान्ता नमोस्तुते तप्त काञ्चन गौरांगी राधे वृन्दावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः नमः ॐ विष्णुपादाय कृष्णप्रस्थाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्ता स्वामीन् इति नामिने नमस्ते सरस्वती देवी गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेषा शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देशतारिणे जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौरभक्तवृंद हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे. So the context for today's discussion, so this chapter 26 is called a description of hellish planets. So in this chapter, Sukadeva Goswami continues to answer King Maharaj Parikshit's questions about the universal structure. So until so far by this chapter concludes the description of upper planetary systems from 16 to 25. Now in this this Sukadeva Goswami describes the lower regions where sinful persons suffer karmic reactions. So in the chapter summary, Prabhupada states this chapter meant to create a fear in the conditional souls of material existence, so about sinful activity, so that will drive or lead them to take the shelter of or to seek Krishna consciousness. So after describing the hellish planets in this chapter, verses 1 to hellish planets and the sinful reactions, from verses 1 to 37, Sukadeva Goswami now explains how to avoid such hellish conditions and progress towards the liberation. So verse 39 basically talks about the path of liberation through hearing Srimad Bhagavatam with faith and conviction, and also what topics one should focus on, and also talks about one should read, hear, um, glorify and share with others. With though even though this difficult, but with faith and conviction, if one take up, then eventually you will you will be successful getting over getting over these three modes of material nature. So the verse Nivrutti Lakshana Marga. So basically, there are in the Vedas there are two paths as described, like for as mentioned in the translation, right, in the cantos 1 and 2 talks about two margas, Pravrutti Marga and Nivrutti Marga. These two paths are described in Vedic literature for human beings. From Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, chapter 2, verse 6. Savai pumsha parodharma yato bhakti radokshaje hayatuki aprahidita ayatma suprasidasi. In the purport, Srila Prabhupada talks about two paths, pravrutti marga, the path of sense enjoyment, and the nivrutti marga, the path of renunciation or spiritual advancement. So what is pravrutti marga? Pravrutti marga means inclination towards sense gratification, particularly attraction between man and woman. This entire material world exists on this principle of sense enjoyment. In pravrutti marga, one follows Vedic injunction for regulated sense gratification within religious principles. Then what is nivrutti marga? Nivrutti marga means tapasya, disinclination from sense gratification and helps you to spiritual advancement. It involves stopping the cycle of birth and death and going back to home, back to Godhead. From Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 7, chapter 15, verse 47, Pravrittim cha nivrittim cha dvidam karma vaidikam आवर्तते प्रवृत्तेन निवृत्तेनाश्नुते amrutam. The basically following the nivritti marga gets you to a eternal and blissful life. According to the Vedas, these two kinds of activities, pravritti and nivritti, pravritti activities involve raising oneself from the lower to a higher condition of materialistic life. That means lower consciousness to higher consciousness. Whereas nivritti means, lower to higher condition of materialistic life. Whereas nivritti means cessation of material desires and elevate one from lower consciousness to higher consciousness. Through pravritti activities, one suffers material entanglement. By nivritti activities, one is purified and becomes fit to enjoy eternal and blissful life. Though the pravritti marga is part of the Vedas and described, Prabhupada basically mentioned that if somebody is already suffering from fever, why you want to add more? Fever to his own existence? So then, once after understanding this pravritti and nivritti margas, what is the path is meant for human life? Again, from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 4, chapter 25, verse 39. Human life is specifically meant for nivritti marga, not to indulge in sense gratification, but to minimize it as far as possible and try to make it to zero. In animal life and demonic life, there is no conception of nivritti marga, nor any actual conception of pravritti marga. So now this particular verse, right, starts with describing the what is the path for the liberation. It describes the path is nivritti marga. The next portion of this verse talks about one should hear and hear, speak and share about Srimad Bhagavatam. What about Srimad Bhagavatam? It talks about the Virata Rupa. So let's understand a bit more on this. What is the Virata Rupa or Vishwarupa? The Virata Rupa is the gigantic universal form of the Lord, described in the Puranas as the vast universe resembling an egg divided into 14 parts. It is Krishna's external body created by his energy and qualities, showing the entire cosmos, including everything big and small. This is actually from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 6, verse 4. Is Virata Rupa, again from the same verse, is the Virata Rupa is the permanent form of Krishna? No. The permanent form of Krishna is Tribhuja Muralidhara, two-handed form playing the flute. The Virata Rupa is called Naimittika, meaning it appears under certain conditions and is not eternal form. The Virata or Vishwarupa, which appreciated by impersonalists, is not an eternal form of the Lord, but is a manifested by his supreme will after the creation of material ingredients. So why did Krishna show this Virata Rupa or Vishwarupa to Arjuna? Again from Bhagavad Gita chapter 11, the Virata Rupa or Vishwarupa was especially manifested not primarily for Arjuna's benefit, but for that of unintelligent class of men who accept anyone as an incarnation of a Lord. The indication is that one should ask chief incarnate chief incarnations to exhibit their Virata Rupa and thus be established as a genuine incarnations. Now the question would come, why would one meditate on the Virata Rupa as mentioned in this particular two verses, as mentioned also in uh, Srimad Bhagavatam 5th canto 23rd chapter verse 9. One who meditates upon the Virata Rupa as external body of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and worships him 3 times a daily will always be free from all sinful reactions. So now we understand this particular verse establishes the Nivritti Marga should be followed, and next also establishes where what especially this section of the Bhagavatam says one should hear about, speak about, explain about the glories of explain about the Lord's Virata Rupa. So we understand a bit more about the Virata Rupa. Now we'll discuss from this verse the benefits of reading and hearing these descriptions. So what benefits comes by reading, hearing about Virata Rupa? As mentioned in this particular verse, if one reads the description with great faith, Hadruta patati or shrunoti or hears about it or sravayati or explains to others to propagate the Bhagavad Dharma is faith and devotion in spiritual consciousness and Krishna consciousness will gradually increase. So in order for our faith and devotion to increase, one has to hear, explain, and propagate. So there's also, I was hearing one of the Prabhus say, he gave one acronym to how do we increase our faith. He gave an acronym called HOLES, HOLES. H means hear about glories. O means observe the devotees or Uttamadhikaris or the senior devotees who heard and who are basically practicing in their life. Then once we hear and observe, then live by those principles or live by those practices. By living what we get, we experience in our lives. Once we experience, once we share, our faith increases. Our faith, like initially before hearing, we may not have much faith into any of these Bhagavad Gita and Bhagavatam. Like I can tell of myself, I didn't have much exposure to them in my early part of life. But once I started hearing, then observing their lives, how they organize, how they conduct, how they deal, oh, then okay, it does make sense. Then I started to apply one at a time. Then see, okay, it does work. Then that means experiential. It is not just a theory. And then at each step, our faith in this scriptures, in the Acharya's um, explanations will actually increase. So now next question, why is the Krishna conscious movement is pushing forward only Bhagavatam? Again, this purport, right? To awaken, basically like to awaken original consciousness in the modern civilized man. Why? Because without this consciousness, one melts into complete darkness, total chaos. So what is the ultimate result of hearing about the universal position? Will help one save himself from the material condition life and gradually elevate him to the path of liberation so that one can go back home, back to Godhead. Now the question would come, right? From where we should read, hear, and explain and propagate? Obviously, it is from Srimad Bhagavatam. And from Padma Purana, it says if somebody wants liberation from this world, to cut the material existence, he should daily study Srimad Bhagavatam, even of a sloka or even one line of a sloka. So Prabhupada would say, right, my books are Vani, and Vani is more important than Vapu. He considers his books as Bhagavata Prasada, and one should read regularly. So again from Chaitanya Charitamrita, whether one is Brahmana, a sannyasi, or a Shudra, regardless of what he is, he can become a spiritual master if he knows the signs of Krishna by regular hearing. Potency of hearing from bona fide acharyas or bona fide devotees. So from Prabhupada's like in 1966 when Prabhupada arrived in New York, at that time there was no temple, no money, no followers. He simply sat under a tree in Tompkins Square Park and chanted Hare Krishna. Young people were attracted by the sound. He invited them, come to my apartment at 7 p.m. I'll speak about Bhagavad Gita and Bhagavatam. That simple hearing created this International Society of Krishna Consciousness. So the potency of hearing from bona fide devotees or acharyas is, um, see by the examples we have seen. Prabhupada would also say, a devotee once asked, how can I advance quickly? Prabhupada replied, simply repeat what you hear from me. That's all. You don't need to manufacture anything. Just become a postman. Again from Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya Lila from 128, 7th chapter. Become a guru on my order and deliver people in your area. Simply instruct everyone about the teaching of Krishna. So by this we can understand the potency of hearing from a bona fide acharya, and also what is the qualification for hear, and what Prabhupada says, like, what is the qualification to preach? We just have to hear and repeat. So we don't need to add anything more. So now let's delve also a bit more onto the glories of Srimad Bhagavatam by Sanatana Goswami from Sri Krishna Leela Stava. So he basically Sanatana Goswami glorified, I think 4 or 5 verses. So let's quickly look into those verses so that we can see why one should regularly take shelter of Srimad Bhagavatam. Verses 1 and 2. सर्वशास्त्रादि पीयूष सर्ववेदैक सत्फला सर्वसिद्धांत रत्नाद्या सर्वलोकैक दिक्प्रदा सर्वभगवता प्राण श्रीमद्भागवता प्रभो क्वलि आदित्य श्रीकृष्ण परिवर्तिता. So Sarva Shastrabdi Piyusha. Piyusha means nectar or ambrosia. So Bhagavatam is a Piyusha, churned from all the literatures, ocean of all the scriptures, Shastrabdi. Just as demigods churned nectar from the milk ocean, the essence of all Vedic knowledge is distilled in Srimad Bhagavatam. This is not an ordinary knowledge, but Amruta, immortal nectar that destroys the material bondage. Sarva Vedaika Satpala. This is the ripened fruit of Veda Vriksha, the one transcendental fruit from the tree of all the Vedas. Like a mango that ripens on the tree is most or more tasteful than one ripened at home. This fruit contains the complete rasa, relishable essence of Vedic wisdom. From Srimad Bhagavatam 1.1.3, Nigama Kalpataror Ghaltam Palam, that the ripened fruit of Vedic desire tree. So next is Sarva Siddhanta Ratnadya. Ratna means jewel. So this is enriched with jewels of all philosophical conclusions. Contains ratnas or gems of Sambandha Jnana, knowledge of relationships, Abhideya, knowledge of the process, Prayojana, knowledge of the ultimate goal. So no need to dig through many multiple shastras. All philosophical jewels are here in the Srimad Bhagavatam. Sarva Lokaika Dikprada grants spiritualism to all people. It opens the Divya Chakshu, divine eyes, to see reality beyond material perception. Removes the Ajnana Andhakara, the darkness of ignorance. Enables Tattva Darshana, seeing the absolute truth as it is. Sarva Bhagavata Purana. This is the life breath of all devotees. Just as a human body or any body cannot exist without prana, devotional life cannot exist without Bhagavatam. This is daily, is why we do daily Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya. Nourishes the Bhakti Lata, the creeper of devotion, like water and sunlight. Kali Vantod Aditya. Aditya means sun. The sun rises to dispel the darkness of Kali Yuga. This Bhagavatam, sun, risen to dispel the darkness of in the Kali Yuga. There are different kinds of darkness, andhakara, in Kali Yuga. Jnana Shunya, Dharma Glani, or Kalaha, or quarrel and hypocrisy, right? Bhagavatam acts, this Bhagavatam helps to eliminate all this darkness. Sri Krishna Parivartita. The Krishna himself has returned in the form of Srimad Bhagavatam. Actually, this is the Krishna has actually transformed as Lord Krishna. This is not merely a book about Krishna, but it is a Krishna himself in Grantha Rupa, Grantha form. It should be worshipped with the same reverence as Archa Vigraha. So this is verses 1 and 2, the glorifications by Srila Sanatana Goswami. Verse 3, Paramananda Pataya Premavarshi Aksharayate Sarvada Sarva Sevyaya Shri Krishnaya Namostute. Paramananda Pata. Paramananda means it is not the ordinary happiness, it's not the ordinary sukha, but it is the transcendental bliss. This this pata or means this path directly leads to pata. This directly leads to all kinds of ananda, eternal bliss, which is millions and million times or more pleasurable than material mundane happiness. Even the liberated trolls relish this rasa. Premavarsha Aksharaya. Every syllable showers divine love in Srimad Bhagavatam. Every letter or syllable contains condensed love or prema. This is not just theoretical knowledge, but experiential power by actually having conversations with various devotees that we can actually see it is the experiential bhava. Like clouds raining water, each verse rains Krishna Prema. Sarvada Sarva Sevya. So one should always, every time, this Srimad Bhagavatam has to be served. This Seva includes, this is for all, it is applicable for all Varnas, all the Ashramas, all the Adhikaris, Kanishta, Madhyama, and Uttama. And this Seva includes studying, hearing, teaching, contemplating, and applying. Sri Krishnaya Namaha, offering namaskara not to the book but Sri Krishna himself. The pranama should be offered before every study. The verse 4, Madeka Bando Matsangin Matguro Manmahadana Nistaraka Madbhagya Mad Ananda Namostute. Madeka Bandhu. Bandhu means friend, the only real friend we need in our life. Eka Bandhu means singular, exclusive companion. While we may have many material friends come and go, Bhagavatam is a Nitya Suhrud, it is eternal well-wisher. Unlike Vishaya Bandhus, friends in sense gratification, this gives Shreya, the ultimate good. Stays with the devotee through all conditions, all phases of the life. Mat Sangin, constant companion. Sangha means intimate association. Provides satsanga, association of pure devotees through their words. Like Saka, always available for conversation or sambhashana. Never judges, never abandons, never misguides. Mad Guru, the supreme teacher, the ultimate Shiksha Guru, functions as Shiksha Guru, instructing spiritual master. Teaches about all tattvas, all the truths. Jiva Tattva, nature of the soul. Maya Tattva, nature of illusion. Bhakti Tattva, nature of devotion. And Krishna Tattva, nature of the Supreme Lord. Gives Guru Krupa through its teachings. Man Mahadana. Dana means great treasure. Surpasses all dhanas, all wealth, all dhanas, not dhanas, wealth, dhana. So this Chintamani, desire fulfilling gem that gives Bhakti Dhana. Man Nishtaraka, the deliverer of the mind. Nishtaraka means crossing over the Bhavasagara, ocean of birth and death. Provides the boat or nava to cross this material existence. Rescues from samsara dukkha, miseries of material life. Mad Bhagya, my good fortune. Bhagya indicates Purva Sukriti, all our past past activities. Getting Bhagavatam is a result of Janma, Janmantara Sukriti, piety from many, many lifetimes. This great Saubhagya opens doors to Krishna Bhakti. Madananda, my bliss. The Ananda experienced is in all these five rasas, either Shanta, Dasya, Vatsalya, Sakya, or Madhurya. This Ananda is inexhaustible and unpolluted. Verse 5, again prayers by Srila Sanatana Goswami. As asadu sadhu tadayin ati nicho chatakara hana muncha kadachin mam prema hrut kantayo spura. Asadu to sadhu transformation bestows saintliness on the unsaintly, transforms Skrutis, the sinful two, into Sukrutis, pious people, changes Asuras to Devatas, demons to divine beings. There are many examples, the Valmiki, Ajamila, like that, you have many pastimes. This purification happens through Bhagavata Shravana. Nicha to Ucha elevation. Ati Nicha Uchatakara uplifts the most fallen. Nicha indicates lowest position in Varnashrama. Ucha means elevated to Brahmabhuta platform. No one is disqualified. Apicheta su durachara. Even the most sinful people can take shelter. The karuna of Bhagavatam is extraordinary. Hana muncha kadachit. Ha means is an exclamation of emotion. Na muncha kadachit. Never abandon at any time. Shows Vipralamba mood. Fear of losing satsanga with this divine companion reflects asakti. That means we should cultivate attachment to Srimad Bhagavatam. Premana hrudi spura. It's man. Hrut means hruda. It's thus basically Hrut is the seat of Bhava and Chitta. Prayer for it is also prayer to remove all the antakaranas. That is basically purification of our heart, all the contaminations. We want the Bhagavatam to manifest in Hridaya, manifest to remove all the in Hridaya, to remove all the knots. This is the dhyana. Kanta spura, vibrate on tongue. Kanta. Kanta means the throat or voice, represent able to speak and glorify. Prayer for power to do Bhagavata Pravachana. Want to become Bhagavata Vakta. Both internal absorption. So these are the five verses glorification of Srimad Bhagavatam by Srila Sanatana Goswami to understand the the immense qualities of Bhagavatam, how one should associate with regularly and make it as part of our life and soul. And also in this particular verse, also talked about we have our transformation comes through to surrender to Srimad Bhagavatam. But to surrender, also it was talks about faith. One should approach Srimad Bhagavatam with faith and conviction. But our faith, right, it's flickery and shaky, right? So most of the times, the faith we have is indifferent in when we have been dealing with calamities or in normal times. So how should we approach? So when we are in a calamity, it's easy to approach, right? But when the real faith is tested, um, obviously in difficult times, but also in normal times, we should take shelter of Srimad Bhagavatam all the times, right? That's how we can get the crossover. This is a material world as described in this particular verse. So there's a small story about the faith. There's a oasis. There are in a desert. There are a lot of people living in this oasis, and as the um, summer season comes or the drought season comes, they are observing the water in reducing in the oasis. Right. Once a saint actually arrives, basically walking through the desert, And he observes that, and he basically asks them, "Oh, do you observe this?" They said, "Yes." "Are you worried?" They are not quite sure. But he said, "If you follow, I have an offer for you. There is a great reservoir of water where you can enjoy. There is no issue of water." He asked them, "Would you like to come with me?" They all said yes, but he said, "There's one condition. The condition is you have to put complete faith in my words. Follow my instructions without deviation. You should not look left and right or behind. Follow straight ahead." So they basically, yeah, with that instruction, the all the inhabitants of the desert started to follow the saint. As they started to saint follow the path, with days are passing by, there is no food, water, sun is hot, blazing, no signs of reservoir. They cannot see anything far distance. Now everybody gets disturbed. The doubts arise in their minds. They are discussing themselves. Is this saint mad? Where is he taking us? Is he cheating us? And they are basically discussing and arguing with them, and then they approach the saint and they argue with him. With that, some look on left, some look on right, some look on back. On the left side, they see a far distance, another oasis. They started to walk towards to it. And they said, "Okay, I don't see anything in the front, and I don't have trust in the words of the saint. Let me go here." And they walks and in the exploration of the water. And this is like heavenly planets. And on the right, some basically it's like another oasis. That's like it is basically again offering moksha. And some like that, there are some look left, some right, some in the back, but only few left followed the saint, and eventually they reach the reservoir. These are the path for they follow the path of pure devotional service. So so the moral of the story is that we should never get distracted by either these pleasures of heavenly pleasures or other liberations, impersonal liberation or other moksha. We should always follow the instructions of Guru, Gauranga, and Parampara, and put faith in the words of Srimad Bhagavatam. And our ultimate goal of aim is to serve and participate loving devotional service of the Supreme Lordships. So, this basically talks about this story talks about the dwellers in the desert are all the conditioned souls, and the saint's role is to give the initial faith and provide the shelter through instructions. Must We all should be followed without deviation. Okay, so this we basically just covered the verse 39. So verse 39 basically talks about it basically established the two margas, and among the nivritti and pravritti marga, the marga to be followed by human beings in nivritti marga. Even though pravritti marga is described in Vedas, but it's not recommended because it is basically increases the fever, and it doesn't it basically degrades the human form of life. And the second topic we talked about was the Lord's, where do so to follow the Nivritti Marga, what one should do. Basically, this particular verse establishes one should read, hear, explain, and propagate the glories of the Virata Rupa as described in Srimad Bhagavatam. So we looked into the Virata Rupa, and then we also talked about glories of Srimad Bhagavatam. How can we get conviction that Srimad Bhagavatam helps us to uh, take the ultimate goal of reaching to go back to Godhead? We looked into Srila Sanatana Goswami's his prior prayers on glorification of Srimad Bhagavatam. So we also, in order to surrender to Srimad Bhagavatam or the instructions of spiritual master or the devotees or the parampara, we have to have utmost faith and conviction. So most of the times, practicing sadhakas, like I tell myself about, the faith is flickery. How can we increase our faith study? So we looked in from a story, and so that we should put a faith in the spiritual master and scriptures, so that we can actually reach our goal. And also, we also talked about what is the benefit actually glorifying reading, hearing, and preaching about the Virata Purusha, as mentioned in various verses, is basically all the sinful reactions are removed, and it will makes us purify our consciousness, removes all another, makes us eligible to practice devotional service. Now we'll quickly come to verse 39. This basically verse 39 talks about main keyword in this verse is sanai. How can we gradually elevate ourselves? How can we gradually purify ourselves? So this particular verse, as talks about the meditation process, right? It basically there is a talks about stula and sukshma. Stula is a gross form, sukshma is the subtle, and where one should actually start is meditation. Like after, so the word as actually word start with shrutva. Shrutva, it after hearing from disciplic succession, where should one start is meditation. Like where it starts saying start from stula, then eventually get to subtle, eventually you we basically come to the sukshma, the subtle, the spiritual form of the Lord. In the translation, one who is interested in liberation, who accepts the path of liberation and is not attracted to the path of conditioned life, is called yati. Yati is or a devotee or a sannyasi. Such a person should first control his mind by thinking of the Virata Rupa, that is the gross, the gigantic universal form of the Lord, and then gradually think of the spiritual form of Krishna, the Satchidananda Vigraha. After hearing both forms, thus one's mind is fixed in samadhi. By devotional service, one can then realize the spiritual form of the Lord, which is the destination of devotees. That way, devotees' lives becomes successful. So who is qualified to follow the meditation from this meditation process as specified in this verse? Yati. Yati means sannyasi or devotee. One who is interested in liberation accept this path and is not attached to conditioned life. So that is a qualification to follow this process. So what is the step-by-step meditation process as mentioned in this verse? Is best to start with the Stula, then transition into Sukshma. Stula is gross. First, once control one's mind by thinking of the Virata Rupa, gigantic form. Transition. So after conquering the mind through gross meditation, right? Stule nirjitam atmanam. Then once come to the sukshma, gradually sane, lead mind through the intelligence to subtle, the spiritual form. So what is again this basically this process mentioned in many verses of Srimad Bhagavatam, like especially Canto 2nd, verses chapter 1, 24 to 25, and also chapter 2, verse 13. And what is this Satchidananda Vigraha form? Satchidananda is Sat Chit Anand, is eternal spiritual form. Sat means eternal, Chit means full of knowledge, Ananda means full of bliss. Krishna's form is eternal, full of knowledge and full of bliss. Unlike the material body, which is Asat, right? Material body is subjected to birth, death, disease, old age. So what is the final result of this meditation? That meditation is once get into samadhi means there is no deviations, fully engaged all the time in loving devotional service of the Supreme Lord. That basically, right, that's what we want. That's we want to make our lives become successful. Then in order to follow this meditation process, there is a necessity, there is a need for association. Whose association? We need the association of Mahatmas, as described by Rishabdeva states in Srimad Bhagavatam, 5th canto, 5th chapter, 2nd verse. Mahat sevam dwaram ahur vimuktes tamo dwaram yoshitam sangi sangam. Mahantaste samachittaha prashanta vimanyaya suhruda sadhavoye. One can attain the path of liberation from material bondage only by rendering service to highly advanced spiritual personalities. These personalities are impersonalists and devotees. Whether one wants to merge into the Lord's existence or want to associate with the personality of Godhead, one should render service to the Mahatmas. For those who are not interested in such activities, who associate with the people fond of women and sex, the path to the hell is wide open. The Mahatmas are equipoised. They do not see any difference between one living entity and another. They are very peaceful and are fully engaged in devotional service. So they are devoid of anger and they work for the benefit of everyone. They do not behave in any abominable way. Such people are known as Mahatmas. So basically, as mentioned by Prabhupada in the purport, Prabhupada said that if one wants to progress on the path of liberation, one has to associate Mahatmas. So because such association where there is a full chance of hearing and describing, chanting the names, form, qualities, and paraphernalia of Supreme Personality of Godhead. So that's only possible in the association of the Mahatmas, as they are described in Bhagavatam. So that's basically the emphasis on when we come and together to read here, we should associate with all the Mahatmas or pure devotees of Supreme Lord. There are two paths, right? One is the path of bondage, right? That is basically goes and keeps us in this material world in the repetition of birth and death, right? But one who desires liberation from such bondage, they have to, again, Prabhupada emphasizes one important point of the importance of the Krishna consciousness movement. What is the Krishna, as we discuss in these two verses, right? One is that what we have to do, we have to follow Nivritti Marga. To follow Nivritti Marga, what we have to do? One have to do Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya. How to do Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya? One have to read the Srimad Bhagavatam daily in the association of the like-minded people, and one has to take the shelter of um, like one has to serve Mahatmas, right? So now, which institute provides all these opportunities? Prabhupada emphasizes that ISKCON is an organization where it provides all these opportunities for us to it provides. Prabhupada established a morning program, then established morning class, established the temples, established devotees, established the parampara. So he established all these aspects so that one can easily practice this path mentioned in these two verses, so that we can actually perfect our life, right? So and then the power of sadhu sangha. I mean, you know, from Bhagavatam, we know many stories, but one of the most important story, you all know Dhruva Maharaj's story from fourth canto, right? Dhruva is a 5-year-old boy insulted by the stepmother. The insult was, you cannot sit on your father's lap because you weren't born from my womb, right? Uh, that's the insult he got. He got hurt as a small boy, ran into his mother, Suniti, for crying. He got the first advice, first sadhu sangha with mother Suniti, that Suniti told him, my dear boy, if you want to sit on your father's throne, you must worship the Supreme Lord. Right. Second, again, as he went to the forest, he met Narada Muni, right? Dhruva went to forest. There he met Narada Muni appeared and asked, why is such a small boy is in dangerous forest? Dhruva explained his desire. He goes through all the pastime, right? Narada gives him the mantra, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. The process was 6 months of severe austerity. After the meditation, right? He is meditating on the four-armed form of Vishnu. The result that he was able to get the direct darshan of Lord Vishnu. So this story tells you that the association of sadhu sangha transforms, even though, I mean, as conditioned souls, as most of us, I mean, I can tell of myself, there are so many material desires, right? Even in spite of these material desires, if we approach the sadhu sangha, take shelter of a Mahabhagavata devotees, take shelter of Bhagavatam, our material desires they will be transformed into spiritual. Right, so this is very important that we have to have all these examples are giving us. I mean, these are examples from Srimad Bhagavatam, but if you look at disciples of Prabhupada, I mean, as the Prabhupada they give an example, right? Like I don't know how many people have visited the Tompkins Square Park or even the Matchless Gift Shop. I mean, it's very difficult to understand, imagine those days. There were none of them, but even the people who got in touch with this Mahabhagavata devotees, they're all this, whatever the desire they have, they're all translated into the spiritual perfections. So then what leads to darkness? The opposite to the above. Tamo dwaram yoshitam sangi sangam. Associate persons who are simply interested in sense gratification opens the door of the darkest region of ignorance. We have to be very, very careful, right? The association with persons who are simply interested in sense gratification in this age of smartphones, chat GPTs, and many other aspects of world, right? The association can come many forms and shapes. So these association, what does it do? It basically pushes us into further down into hellish regions. As described in this particular chapter, the sinful reactions of the hellish planets, like different planets are described in different chapters, and the destination because of the sinful reactions one performs. So we have to be careful. And also, then we also have to be careful to assess who is a real Mahatma or who is not a Mahatma. So, as described in Bhagavad Gita 9.13, Mahatma nastu mam parda daivim prakritim ashritaha. Great souls are under the divine nature and are fully engaged in serving Krishna with undivided mind. Bhajanti ananya manasa. Right? They are very rare, sudurlabha, and not easily obtainable. They have nothing to do with this material world or under the care of the Prakriti. So we have to be very, we have to have the discrimination power to see who is the Mahatma and who is not Mahatma when we are actually taking shelter. And what should we do regarding Mahatmas, right? And this is, we should be careful not to mistake who is a Mahatma. Some so-called Mahatmas, like sometimes we hear many stories being part of India, right? We see so many so-called godly people, and we see so many issues. So we have to be very, very careful. And basically, so who is a Mahatma, who is not Mahatma? And also, we also have to be careful committing offenses too. We should not judge. So like sometimes our judgmental mentality comes in. So we have to be very, very careful dealing with Mahatmas. So again, we talked about in this particular verse talks about what is the benefits one gets by joining ISKCON, right? So what is that? In order, as these two verses described, we have to follow Nivritti Marga, we have to read Bhagavatam, we have to be in association of devotees, we have to increase our faith, right? We have to take shelter. So all these are, we are, lucky that in by the mercy of Prabhupada, he basically gave all of them. Just have to, we have to just follow. If you ask the question, right, what other institutes provides all of them, especially to practice Nivritti Marga, then maybe there are a few, but I think definitely the ISKCON is one of the prominent ones. So now, what is the practical way to practice Nivritti, right? Practical way to practice Nivritti Marga is tapasya, practicing restraint from all material habits, following the four regulative principles, and all practice path given by Srila Prabhupada. And the role of chanting in this process described in these two verses, chanting of Hare Krishna Mahamantra directly cleanses the mirror of heart, Chetodarpana Marjanam. When our minds are cleansed through this chanting, we can do this Nityam Bhagavata Seva, associate with devotees, engage in a loving devotional service. The essence of these two verses is by hearing, reading, and explaining the descriptions of Krishna's universal form with faith, our spiritual consciousness gradually increases. We then progress from meditating on the gross universal form to subtle spiritual form of Krishna through devotional, loving devotional service, especially by associating with the devotees in Krishna conscious movement. This perfection of human life, using it for Nivritti Marga rather than wasting it in endless material pursuit. So this is basically a perfect formula given in these two verses. Perfect process is given, and the perfect environment, and also the society. So in a nutshell, what is the problem? Material bondage leads to hellish suffering, as described in entire this particular chapter. The solution, hearing about Krishna's forms, both Virata and spiritual. The method, association with devotees with systematic hearing. The process, gradual elevation from gross to subtle meditation. What is the requirement? The faith. You should have at least some faith and build on that faith so that our devotion can increase and our intelligence can be purified. The modern application is basically, this is for, I think most of us are in ISKCON, but for general light, one should join ISKCON, hear Bhagavatam, engage in service and all that. The result, samadhi, as described in verse 39, the realization and going back to Godhood. So now after going through these 2 verses, I request prayers and blessings from all of the assembled devotees that let Bhagavatam be my Ekabandhu, only friend, Satsanga, pure association, Guru, guide, Vistharaka, deliver, and Ananda to get that in ultimate bliss. Thank you. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Any any comments?
Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you for the wonderful class. You have started from a novice entering ISKCON to coming out to the ultimate destination of what we're supposed to do in one class. So that's been a very, very wonderful attempt from your side. And thank you really for explaining in detail about the Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya, which we're doing every day. So I think the devotees who are joining us every day would really feel good about that. That's very important. Thank you. That ultimately it's all about how we, you talked about the Nivritti Marg, how we actually progress and how Srimad Bhagavatam really helps us. And that's the only way actually to get. And then you also said about ultimately it's ISKCON as an organization, how Prabhupada has made it, he has made every program over here to help us, get the ultimate destination of, continuing with our loving devotional service. Thank you so much. I've just opened the line, so I would ask devotees to share their reflections. If you have any questions, please raise them. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Dandavat Pranams. Thanks for the wonderful class, Prabhu. Prabhu, can you please repeat the definition of Pravrutti Marga and Nivrutti Marga, Prabhu?
Sure, Mata. Just once, yeah.
I understood that we should follow the Nivrutti Marga.
Yes, a Pravrutti Marga is inclination towards sense gratification.
Okay.
So Nivrutti Marga is basically is a tapasya. It's just inclination from sense gratification and spiritual and inclination towards spiritual advancement. So like if you go to verse Srimad Bhagavatam Canto 7, chapter 15, verse 47. So it's basically talking, according to the Veda, there are 2 kinds of activities, pravrutti and nivrutti. Pravrutti activities involve raising oneself from lower to higher conditions of materialistic life, like making more sophistications. Whereas nivrutti marga means cessation of material desires. Through pravrutti activities, one suffers from material entanglement, but nivrutti activities, one is purified and becomes fit to enjoy eternal blissful life.
Thank you so much, Prabhu. And you said this acronym whole, no, Prabhu?
Yes, Mata.
Holes. Holes.
Yeah, so basically to build a faith, like it's basically like if somebody, I can take a mundane example. If somebody wants to go from India to America, right? First you have to hear about America. Then you have to observe one who went to America, right? Then you have to know yourself you should go there so that you can live in America. Then once you go there, then you experience a life and share. So then your faith in America increases. Similarly, our faith in Bhagavatam or all the scriptures, to increase that faith, so we have to hear about the pastimes, hear about message. Then we have to observe the devotees, Bhagavata devotees who are practicing in their life. Then we have to live with that, how they are living their life. Like we need to know how they are actually applying in their life, so we should apply in their life. So each stage faith actually increases. Then once you observe, live, now you are experiencing yourself, right? Now you can actually share. So from a distant concept to it is ingrained, so the faith actually increases at every step.
Thank you so much, Prabhu. Hare Krishna, Dandavat Pranams.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu, Dandavat Pranam. Very nice class. Thank you very much for the nice class. Like the concluding thing, what you told, that Bhagavatam is my friend. That verse of from Padyavali is very dear to me. But I never knew anything. I've just read it in a Subodhini. I just saw in the front cover page. From without my knowledge, I always recite that Madeka Bandho Mat Sangit, Madguru Man Mahadan. It's a very dear verse for me. Thank you so much for the wonderful class. Dandavat Pranam.
Prabhu, I think there are no other.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, Dandavat Pranam. Thank you for the wonderful class, Prabhu. Very nice flow and good. You have so many things, Prabhu. Hare Krishna, Dandavat Pranam.
Any other comments or questions? Okay. Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you for your time. And thanks, devotees, for joining us on a Saturday morning to get the association for the Sadhu Sangha. So it's been a wonderful class. So tomorrow we'll be having the live class from temple. So please join us from there. Prabhu, if we can just end the session now, we'll just end with the Vaishnava Pranam. Vancha kalpatarubhascha kripa sindhabhi patitanam
Bhavnebhyo Vaishnavyo Namo.
Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai. Vaishnava Thakur Sri Prabhupada ki jai.
Jai.
Nitai Gaur Sri Garam Chandra Hare.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much, Prabhu. Thank you for your time. Hare Krishna. I'll end the session now.